Hi, friends. Welcome to the Wednesday LiveStream at Dulcimer Crossing. I'm Steve Uhlberg, and let's see, how do we do that now? There we go. And I am excited to be back with you. Thank you to Erin May, who has been hosting the live stream for the past couple of weeks. Last week I was in Ohio so that I could visit my sister, and actually both sisters. And the week before that, my kids were here for the first time from Toronto and Portland. First time we'd seen them all together in nearly 3 years. So thank you to Erin May for providing that opportunity. Next week, Erin May will be back because I will be on vacation and driving and not able to do it that day. But today, what I want to do is look at old time music and Weiser. Now, if you haven't heard of the name Weiser before, Weiser is the National Old Time Fiddlers Contest and Festival. It was started back in 1953 here, just an hour and 10 minutes north of me, 50 miles in Weiser, Idaho, just across the river from Oregon. And I've been hearing about this since I would come home from the Kentucky Music Week, which is going on right now in Bardstown, Kentucky, or in and around Bardstown, Kentucky this year. I would come home and be on the bus with my instruments, and there'd be a fiddler get on who just got back from Weiser. And they would be telling me how wonderful Weiser was, and I'd be telling them how wonderful KMW was. Well, Weiser is fiddle focused, old time fiddle focused, although there's a lot of swing as well, and some other cool bossa nova that I heard when I was there. My buddy Vi Wickham, he's my fiddle partner for my duo Fiddle Wham Diddle. We recorded our old school old time recording in 2012, and then Not My Monkey in 2017. We released them in those times. And he's been going up there and competing and judging and teaching workshops for several years. And because it was always in the competing week of when I would be in Kentucky, we could never do it together, and I always longed to do it. Then COVID happened. Then we moved. And lo and behold, we moved so close. So this year I said, I've got to go. And so Vi flew into Boise last Friday, and got him fed, and then got him provisioned, and I took him up there and we played in the afternoon. We had a good afternoon, early evening, and I came back home, and I went up again on Sunday in the afternoon, and we had a good time playing. We did some jam about flagpole, and then he got connected with the young guy that just won the advanced banjo contest on Saturday, and they together were in the banjo fiddle contest and played marvelously. It's actually a fundraiser for the Idaho Bluegrass Association. And so there was a pie auction. Now, they had a real auctioneer doing the pie auction, and it was something else. And they raised a lot of money to support the activities of the Idaho Bluegrass Association. It was exciting to be a part of. But we got to hear all these different ways that fiddles and banjos can play together. It was really, really cool. And he and Grant played marvelously, and they won second place. And so they got a trophy, and they got a pie, and they got cash. So it was a cool thing. I'm going back up again this week, and then on Saturday I'll go back up and in the open contest. But there's several different categories of fiddling contest. In the open contest, the Saturday night is when that winner is announced and all that. But they have entertainment interspersed with the contests, and Vi and I are going to play for that. So I'm excited about that. Just I'm excited to let you know that that's coming. And but it made me think about some things that I wanted to share with you today, because festivals are happening and we get to play together with people again, and we're not necessarily in control of our environment or the music that other people want to play. And I don't know about you, but every single time I come into a new place, it can be that I do or don't know the people who are there. It's possible, I just don't. But every time I come into a position like that, It's like being in the high school cafeteria. You got your tray and you're wondering, where am I going to sit? And is it going to be with my friends? Am I going to sit by myself? Am I going to have to sit by people I don't know? Or, I'm having a fight with right now? It's that constant new situation. I'm carrying my instruments. What's it going to be like? Well, here's my suggestion. If you're going to go to a place you haven't been, find somebody that who can be your wingman, somebody who knows the people there. That was my experience of going to Weiser with Vi. It's very intimidating, even though it's the beginning part. But it reminds me of my first time to go to Winfield, or my first time to go to Insert Festival here. Coming as a teacher, there's a little bit of a runway paved for you, but when you're not, there's not. And Vi did a good job of introducing me around. He'd been coming there a long time, knew a lot of people. They were excited to see him. They were excited to meet his friend. And we've had fun playing music together. But here's one of the things it did as we went around and listened and think, okay, over here in Stickertown, I want to be part of that jam. And this one sounds really interesting. And then up in Fiddletown, I'm going to do that. And over here, I'm mapping it out in my head. So it's starting to feel a little more familiar just by walking around, not playing to begin with, just walking and talking. That's a useful skill. Just do that. But then Vi had to go do something, and I sat down by the flagpole, and there was a fella sitting there. And because I'd had that introduction to the new setting, I felt comfortable enough to say, hello, my name's Steve. This is my first time here. And the fella that was sitting on the other side of the flagpole said, I don't remember his name, but this was his first time here too. And so we started talking. We made connections about where you're from. Oh, do you know so-and-so? And, building those connections. I never would have felt comfortable enough to do that until I'd been welcomed. So here's the thing. If you're the one that's familiar at a place and you see somebody standing around, welcome them and take them around and introduce them to people. Even if you don't know them, find out a little bit, introduce them. It makes it easier. That can help when you're sitting in the circle too. Because sometimes people are all worried about what they're going to be doing in the circle, whether it's fiddling or mounting or hammering, and they don't think about the people that are not as comfortable as them because they're so uncomfortable or so anxious. But here's a suggestion: pretend you're not anxious. It doesn't have to be true. As my friend Buffalo says, sincerity is everything that counts in this business. And if you can fake that, you're gold. No, if you pretend that you're not anxious, it's interesting what can happen. You can meet people, you can be welcomed, you can welcome others. And because you're being welcoming, people respond to you. And that means, as they're responding, they're likely to ask you, what tune would you like to play? Or would you like to call for us to play together? You got a tune? Let's pick some. You got a tune? Let's play. And then it's useful to have that. I mentioned this a lot of times. I have a 3x5 card that's got 3 songs on it, the names of which and you know something about the card. Because here's what's absolutely true. And I've said this before. It hasn't changed. When it's time to pick a tune, nothing. I know no tunes. I've never played this instrument before. I don't recognize anything. I know no tunes. Or the only tune that I can remember is the one they just got done playing. So if you take a 3x5 card and write the title of the tune on, you might say what key it's in, the starting note, if there's something unusual about it, just something that jogs your memory. Write 3 of those on one side of a card, stick it in your back pocket, take it to the jam. When the tunes are played, look out, pull it out and say, oh yeah, I want to do this one. And it's just because you can start and stop it. So you've got your card with your 3 tunes. If somebody else calls one of your tunes, which sometimes happens if it's going in a circle right when they get to the person before you, then you can go to number 2 on your list. And you could go to number 3. Now, depending on the size of the circle, you may get to play all your tunes, you may not. Somebody else may call them, you get to play. But if you have that, then you don't have to, you can overcome the blankness of the slate, which in my experience happens every single time. So there's that. If these 3 tunes, after you've done that a few times, you can turn it over and write 3 more tunes on the back. You got 6. That'll get you through a lot of jam sessions. Now, that's the first thing about how I can participate in leading. So if I'm going to lead a session, I need to pick the tempo for it. And that's what potatoes are for. On the hammer dulcimer, we do it this way. The potatoes are the bum. So that is a way to do that. There's another way that you can do it on the mountain dulcimer. Sometimes we don't call it potatoes, but it's the same idea. I can strum, or I could go, I can do the last little phrase of a song. So that means I'm going to have to practice before I get to for the old time session. I'm going to have to practice a little bit to start a tune. So I'm going to have to practice giving the potatoes on the hammer dulcimer. I'm going to have to practice the last line of the tune or whatever I'm going to do so that I can get used to giving the tempo, because that potatoes is bum 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 bum. And when I do it here, bum 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 bum, when I'm giving everybody a clue about what key it's in, how fast it's going to go, and I don't want to give potatoes going digga 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 da 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 da. They need to match. So when I'm starting a tune, giving a clear beginning, I've got to make my tempo giving thing, or whatever I do to start to lead us into the tune, I need to do it at the same tempo that I'm going to do the tune. And then I don't stop when I get done. I give a tempo, and that sets up an internal, what's called a tactus. Organists and piano players for churches know this, that when you play whatever it is as the introduction, you don't stop and just kill the beat, because you've just set up the expectation and people know when to come in, and everybody is scared to death of coming in at the wrong time. So when I give the beat, and people may not come in right away, but you got to keep on going because you've started it. It could be that they're doing another strategy that I use is, if this is unfamiliar tune, or if I'm having a little trouble remembering what the sound of the tune is, even though I know the name of the tune, sometimes the tune and its name, they drift apart. Sometimes they even divorce. And I can't keep the tunes and the names together. I'm well known for calling Sandy River Bell and then playing Whiskey Before Breakfast. That happens. So I'm trying to get those clear, but sometimes you call a tune and you play the wrong, and it's funny. Everybody just laughs. Say, boy, that's an interesting Sandy River Bell there. It sounded an awful lot like Whiskey Before. Did I do that again? I'll say. Or yes, Jamie says they'll all run together. Exactly. Or in the Butch Ross way of talking about things, if you like one fiddle tune, you'll like the other one. Because when you're not attuned to the little bit of differences in the tunes, there can be a lot of similarities. That is what I actually count on, the similarities between the tunes, because that puts me in the neighborhood of where I want to be. But if I give this good, strong, steady beginning, we can all launch. Now, what I was saying is, if it's a tune that I don't remember, or I'm trying to remember, oh, this could be this or this because they have some similar things about them, I'll wait. Oftentimes in old time sessions, there'll be an A that gets repeated and a B that gets repeated. They may not be the same length. I was just listening to a Don Petty tune yesterday where the A is twice as long as the B. It gets repeated. You go to the B and it's like, junk, you're done. You're back to the A. It seems like you spend all your time in your A. It's just because the way the tune's constructed, the A part is a lot bigger than the B part. So I do this A part, repeat it, and then do the B part, A part, A part, B part, B part, A part. That's the way the tune is. Now, when I'm listening, I want to know, is it that kind of tune? But I'll listen all the way through an A part before I'll try to pick up what's happening here. And I'm listening for a couple of things. I'm listening for, what's the last chord? Where do they end up? Because that's going to be home. And if I know where home is, I'll have an idea of what kind of things are going to be there. So if it's a major song, this is something I say a lot. If it's a major tune, I'm going to probably have 1, 4, 5 chords that show up. So if I know where I'm ending, I have a good predictor of what the other chords are going to be. And so that is part of the mental calculation that's going on when somebody starts a tune. And I don't play right away, I'm listening, then I come in. And the nice thing about repetition is when the first part's played, they come around, do it again, I got a fighting chance. Second time, the B part's played, then it's repeated, I get a fighting chance to come around and get it then. So that's what I do. Jim is saying, practicing hammer, dulcimer, different keys. And this is really interesting because you mentioned the tune Cherokee Shuffle. That is an A tune. In the dulcimer world, it often gets played in D. Now, I like it best on my baritone mountain dulcimer, but that may not be the one I had with me. This happened at Weiser on Sunday. What tune are we going to play? Cherokee Shuffle. And I have to do the mental calculation because it was called by a banjo player. I'm not sure what, and he was capoed at the first fret. I'm not sure if he's in an open D tuning, which lets him play an A very nice, or lets him play D at capoed at the second fret, or if he's in G just capoed up so he can play an A. So I don't know what he's got his banjo tuned for. I have to listen. And Vi started playing, and I'm going. I had my hammer dulcimer out, and I was playing. Going, nope, we're not in D. We're in A. Okay, very good. So there are tunes that in the dulcimer world we have adapted to be in the place where people don't have to retune a lot. But outside of the dulcimer world, they actually live in other keys. Old Joe Clark is one of those. That's an A tune. In the dulcimer world, it's often taught as a D tune. There are a lot of tunes like that. Barlow Knife is a G tune that often gets learned as a D tune. So I think it's just important for us to know when you got the at home rules, you got the away game rules. You just got to know what territory you're in. Or, you can get away with some things at grandma and grandpa's, but at home you can't. We are humans, we can adapt. So we just learn these things. Now, once the tune gets started and you're playing along and you're looking around and everybody's having a good time, there's different ways that people participate in old time jams. One is you play the tune pretty straightforward for a few times, and then you start playing. And particularly, this festival Weiser is a contest, and so people are looking for what are the variations that can happen. What does the fiddler do? And so it's not strictly old time where everybody's playing the same thing over and over again to try to create a Zen experience where the whole group is creating this kind of, it's not a Borg because that's that Star Trek movie and Next Generation thing of that's got negative connotations, but it's like everybody gets, and here's the word, entrained. We all get entrained in the same tempo, timing, tone. And when you hear yourself, you're not playing it right because everybody else is playing the same thing. And if you're sticking out, you're not matching. So that's that Zen. That's kind of the old time experience that some people are looking for. Don Petty talks about it in a Zen kind of a way. That's what he's looking for. Some of us, me one, Vi is another, he says, we're a little attention deficit when it comes to that. And we want some variation. And we're also playing for audiences rather than contestants or the session. So when we're doing that, we're looking for variety and variations and stretching the tune a little bit and inserting triplets or leaving some things out or adding some rhythmic changes. And the one fellow that joined us was saying, oh, that's nice. I like those variations. I hadn't heard some of those variations before. So he appreciated on the mandolin hearing different variations from the fiddle and the hammer dulcimer. So that's the other thing that can happen. If I don't quite know the tune and it's not coming out the same this time around, I don't have to despair. I just stay with what I've been working on and listen to how what they're doing is a little bit different, and tuck that away for a future thing. Jamie, I'm noticing you're saying, if you like lively tunes, but it's sometimes so many jams or jam tunes turn in a race to the finish. And here's part of that. It's a volume thing too, and it's anxiety. There's a couple things that are happening. They're like twins. There's excitement and anxiety. So when you get to the festival, you get to play with the people. It's so great. You got 100 people in a room. It's just so exciting to be part of this big thing when you live by yourself and play by yourself. That's me. Always in the dulcimer world. I've lived where there were no other dulcimer players, and then did my best to try to create a community or find the community around me, so that, and build it up as much as possible so there's more people. But there's excitement. I get to do it. My heart beats faster. That makes my tempos go a little faster. The other thing is anxiety. I'm afraid I'm going to get left behind. And what I'll often do this in workshops is I'll talk about this very thing that you're talking about, Jamie. And that is, I'm playing and I'm worried what they're thinking about my playing. And I think they're thinking about me more than they're thinking about me. They're worried that they're not keeping up with me, that they're doing something wrong. And this whole thing of what you think about me is really none of my business. And it overinflates my importance in somebody else's life. I'm just not near as important to other people as I'm afraid I am. And so when I'm in a session and there's somebody on this side who's worried that they're going slower than me, and somebody on this side is worried and I'm worried that I'm slower than both of them, we all speed up, and that's where that race to the finish and the train wreck can happen. So we're trying to find that, and it helps to have a jam leader who is familiar enough with the tune and the experience, who can help keep the tempo steady. And sometimes people get lost between the A and the B part, and you need to be able to notice that. Jim Miller is really good at this. Rick Thumb is also really good at this. They'll notice and say A part, and you may have gotten it upside down. I did this when I was taking African drumming. I got the rhythm. I was just going to great guns, and I look up at the teacher because you can't hear voices. And the teacher went like this. And I go, oh, I realized I had the correct rhythm, but I was half a measure off. So I had it upside down. So then I had to stop and go, okay, here's where it goes, and put it in. And then he smiled and nodded his head, because I had it right, but I was off. And that'll happen in a jam. It's not a problem. It's just something that happens. And sometimes, if you know this is happening, you can provide some leadership by not strumming everything on the mountain dulcimer and playing the melody on the bass where it's a little louder or somewhere else, so everybody can hear what part of the tune we're in. On the hammered dulcimer, I'll move to a different register sometimes if I'm trying to provide leadership like that. I'll go higher because that rings out a little bit, or I'll go as low as possible, because on the bottom sometimes that helps. But just being in a different sonic space can help provide that leadership. Now, the question about dropping back and chording and playing backup, I do that. And I do that not just because the speed can go crazy. I do it because I want to hear what everybody else is doing. And often people will say, I'm playing chop a lot on mountain dulcimer, for example. I'll be going, so I'm playing on the chop, which is on the offbeat, and I'm providing some space. And that lets me hear what's going on around. It lets the people on either side hear a little space and begin to hear their own voice of their instrument. And I'll often say this to people: if you can't hear yourself in a jam, stop, drop out, and then start again. Whatever dropped out, that was your voice. On the hammer dulcimer, I use a damper. So I will sometimes do the boom chuck, play one and answer with two other pieces of the chord, and I'll use the damper in between so that what I'm doing on the hammer dulcimer provides some space so that other people can hear where we are in the song. But I also, the other thing is my expectation is adjusted when I'm going to an old time jam. I'm not looking to play chord melody anything. Now, in the swing jams, that is about chord melody, or it can be, because that's a part of how playing swing guitar happens. You're playing a melodic thing and you've got chord voicings that support what you're doing melodically. And that's actually the way a lot of hammer or mountain dulcimers, we develop our highest version of an arrangement in a chord melody style. But when I'm in a jam session, that's not what's happening. I may have some chord melody things happening, but it's about the cast of thousands together, and chord melodies going to be covered up by, if anybody's playing drone, the chords are going to be covered up by the drone. And so I will play chords, and I'll play chop chords, and that provides a different texture for what's happening. And I don't consider that to be a diminishment of my experience at all. I enjoy it. I just know that my most intricate arrangements are not going to be heard or shine in that setting. So I just adjust my expectations for that. Now, the other question is, I get there and I find a tune I really like. How can I remember it? One is play it and play it again. Ask somebody else to play it. And this is where being a newbie, I exploit, because newbies are not expected to know everything. So asking questions is the job of a newbie. So if it's new genre, new people, new setting, I ask questions. Hi, my name is, I know that. Anybody know my name? Sometimes that can happen. After a really good tune, you can lose your you can lose your name. But before somebody would call a tune, I said, "What's this tune?" I will ask the name of the tune. We play it. After it was over, go, "That was a good tune. What was that one called again?" And then I'll say it to myself 3 times. So at least when I go home, I can look at my resources and say, do I have this in some kind of a recorded form? Is it on paper? Is it in a book? Is it in a sound file or on a CD that I can listen to? Maybe that the CD or the book is going to be a little bit different than it was played here, but it'll give me the ballpark. So that's how I learned how to do that, playing by ear in that kind of a setting. I would ask a lot of questions about what the tune is so that I could remember it, say the name over and over again, and try to remember, okay, Cherokee Shuffle, that's an A. And then go home and say, I know I have that somewhere. I know I've played it in D. I know it. Oh, but there it is, right in the Fiddler's Fake book. I can look right there and play it. And now here's the thing for me too, Jamie, because you're working with standard and diatonic and chromatic instruments, it could be useful to take the song that's on the standard one that and play it on the chromatic and see, what do I learn differently. For me, I play it on guitar, I'll play it on hammer dulcimer, I'll play it on banjo. I'll work at learning it in different instruments, and that helps me also cement the tune. It can be learning at different places on the same instrument that it can achieve that same result as well. Some places it's easier, and when I'm working on a new tune, I'll go with the easier every time because I'm trying to remember it. And then I'll want to add something to it. What else can happen here? Now, finally, you're at a jam. You've started the tune. It's going along. It's really trucking along really good. How are you going to end it? Well, there is the famous foot. When you're at a computer desk, it's a little hard. But raising your foot like that, just raising your foot. If you're standing up, you kick it out in front. If you're playing, you raise your foot. If you're under a hammer dulcimer, it's a little hard for people to see your foot, right? I did see someone who made a separate, like a damper pedal, but they fashioned a foot out of a piece of wood. When they'd step on it over here, the foot would go up out in the front of the hammer dulcimer, and that was the way. But hammer dulcimers often talk to each other, and they'll say, out, home, last time, anything like that that gives us, or a hoop, which just lets us know this is it. We're finishing up here. But that also part of being in a jam experience is I'm not looking at paper. I'm looking at my instrument, or I'm looking around at the people who are playing. So I'm not distracted by the paper. Which lets me get into the community. And I will notice some clues if they lift an eyebrow, or they're looking at me, or they raise both eyebrows to ask the question, do you want to play a solo here? Not old time doesn't usually have solos, but some sessions they'll say, do you want to take a break? In the swing session we had on Saturday, yep, that was part of it. You want to take? Well, let's hear the dulce on that. Oh, that'd be nice to have a fiddle. How about twin fiddling? How about the mandolin? That stuff will happen, and you can always say no. In fact, the swing guitar player, who was wonderful, first time he was offered a solo, he said, no, I'm good. And then later on, after we played the song 6 times, something like that, then he took a solo. It was awesome. But he wanted to get, comfortable with the tune, get it into his blood, kind of. And so that's important. I hope what I've shared today are helpful things for you. How to get to a jam and find it to a place where you are not known. True, Jim. Take a break can be like take 5. Would you take a break. In the musical context of playing all together, that's usually the play it. But you're right. In common parlance, it can be both things. Isn't language wonderful? But I hope you have some tips for getting to a place where you're unfamiliar and finding your way in, allowing someone else to help you be welcomed. And when you are the one who has a little bit of familiarity, welcome others. And you don't have to have that much familiarity. If you know where the bathroom is and somebody else doesn't, you're the welcomer because you can help everybody feel better. And then get the song started. Some ways to remember the songs that you do know so that you can start them with a 3x5 card in your pocket. And once the song, and how to get it started at the tempo that you want to play it at, in the key you want to play it. And that's the thing. If you're starting the song, you get to call the tempo and the key. Other people can, when it's their turn, they get to do what they want. But when it's your turn, you get to do what you want. So you could say, Jim, I want to play Cherokee Shuffle in D. And other people say, well, that's really an A tune. Yep. But I want to do it in D. I want to try it in D. When it's your turn, you get to pick the timing and the tune and the tempo. Tuning or key, timing, all those things. Then when it's going good, you got to be able to stop it sometime. If you don't, somebody else will. And I've played with people who blew past stop signs. I had to put my instrument down and get up and walk away, and they kept playing. I thought, well, this is really interesting. That was my tune. I started it, and I'm done. And they blew through I don't know how many stop signs. Yeah, well, that's what happened. And that happens too. And like you said, humor is based on humiliation. Is that what you said? Or maybe what you could say is instead of it's based on humiliation, don't ever let a moment of humiliation get away without making some humor out of it. Maybe that's the better thing, the better way to look at it. But it's good to be with you today. Next Wednesday, Erin May will be back because I'll be driving, and she hasn't told me what her topic is, but that's exciting. And next month in July, we're going to have a wonderful workshop on jigs with Patty Emelot from Looney's Fortune in Southern California. So that's coming up next month. Grant Olson will be here for some chromatic mountain dulcimer as a workshop for Dulcimer Crossing in August. So we've got a lot coming up. But in the meantime, I hope you have a great time, whatever festivals or opportunities or jam sessions you get to go to. And I am looking forward to going back up to Weiser. And when I get a chance, I'll report back to you. But until then, everybody keep hammering, picking, strumming. Bye.